Low income isn't always about laziness or bad luck. Often, it's your mind quietly steering your life. You work hard, but you keep hitting the same wall. You doubt yourself before you even try. You feel calm on payday, but then panic hits with the very next bill. Here's the psychological reason: when stress becomes normal, your brain starts choosing safety over growth. When you've learned that effort won't pay off, your choices shrink without you even noticing. You may even avoid better opportunities because success feels unfamiliar, and fear feels familiar. Carl Jung's archetype theory adds another piece to the puzzle. You might be living inside a role like the caregiver, always giving and never receiving. Or the survivor scanning for danger because it expects disappointment. Or the undervalued one, believing you must earn love through exhaustion. In this video, you'll connect the dots. You'll see the patterns between your everyday habits and what your inner self is trying to protect. You'll see where the cycle comes from and how to start breaking it, step by step. The problem of low income is not only about money. It is about mindset and internal beliefs. Low income is often shaped by patterns in your attention, your choices, and the stories you repeat to yourself when stress hits. Your money situation can change, but your inner lens can keep selecting the same options again and again, even when a better path is available. You feel it as a tightness in your chest before a bill is due. And then you tell yourself it's pointless to plan. That feeling isn't just emotion. It's information your mind uses to guide your behavior. Carl Jung's archetype theory adds a sharp lens here. Your psyche doesn't only think about money, it performs roles. When you're under strain, you can slip into an inner archetype like the victim, convinced that circumstances will crush you no matter what you do. Another pattern is the scarcity mindset. Here, every decision is filtered through loss first. You avoid risks that might actually restore stability. You might stay stuck in low-paying work, not because you lack skills, but because your inner voice insists you were never meant to rise. It tells you that wanting more makes you unsafe. Over time, that belief shapes your confidence and your willingness to ask for help. You can see this in everyday life. If you get a rejection email, the victim archetype frames it as proof you don't belong. So you stop applying. You spend the next weeks recovering instead of building momentum. If a coworker mentions a training opportunity, a scarcity-driven story labels it as not for people like you. So you don't sign up, even when you could. These aren't moral failures. They're coping systems that once helped you survive, but now they keep you small. The insight Jung points toward is this: you're not trapped by money alone. You're held in place by identity. When you repeatedly live from fear, your psyche learns that fear is a reliable guide. It rewards you with short-term relief, while quietly sabotaging long-term change. But when you begin to recognize the archetype in you, naming the victim tone, spotting the scarcity filter, you can choose a different response. That shift doesn't magically fill your bank account overnight, but it changes the way you handle setbacks. Your mindset becomes a door, not a ceiling. Low income often follows a psychological trail that starts long before money problems show up on your bank app. Childhood patterns and fears train your nervous system. They make you treat safety, belonging, and control as money-related long before you can even name it. If your family's finances were tense, you learn to scan for danger. Later, that skill can hijack how you spend, save, and ask for help. If you grew up hearing that money is scarce, you might carry a constant alarm in your body. You may overwork just to feel secure, even when you're already exhausted, because stopping feels like falling. A common example is choosing the cheapest option repeatedly, while still making small, relief purchases. This is the mind trying to calm fear in the moment, rather than building stability for the future. Carl Jung's archetypes explain why this feels automatic. You may develop an inner, wounded child that expects disappointment. So you avoid planning, because planning only highlights what you might not get. Or a caregiver role can take over. You give away what you should protect, and then you're surprised by the gap in your own finances. There is also the inner exile, where you believe you don't belong in big opportunities. So you keep yourself small, staying in jobs or relationships that limit your earning power. These fears also decide what risk means to you. If childhood taught you that mistakes bring punishment, you may avoid investing or switching careers. You might call it being careful, but internally, you're just trying to prevent shame. And shame is costly. Your adult money behavior may be protecting a child version of you from pain you no longer want to feel. You can't fix it with sheer willpower. But when you notice the trigger, the tight chest or the urge to buy, you're meeting an old fear. The way you respond next can break the cycle. Jung believed the mind carries inherited archetypes. These patterns color your choices, especially when money is tight. The archetype of the caregiver shows up as constant self-sacrifice. You may spend what you don't have to help others because you fear being seen as selfish. It feels heroic, but it traps you. You wait for everyone else to get their act together while your own needs are postponed. Then there's the hero. The hero pursues achievement even when the cost is too high. You might take overtime you can't recover from, or chase promises that keep slipping. When your worth depends on becoming enough, low income becomes a treadmill. You work harder, feel more pressure, and still struggle. The trickster archetype appears as avoidance or risky bargaining. It looks like ignoring bills until the last moment, or chasing quick fixes. In real life, you might switch between unstable gigs just to escape the discomfort of monotony. Another powerful one is the shadow. These are the parts of you that you don't want to face. If your shadow holds shame, you may avoid interviews or accept humiliating treatment. You tell yourself you're being realistic, but you're actually protecting an inner wound. The ruler archetype also matters. When you want control, you may cling to rigid rules or refuse help. You might stay in a bad situation because, at least, it's consistent. That need for control can block the flexible moves that would actually open doors. The wise path is learning to notice which archetype is driving. When you feel the urge to give away your last dollar, ask, is the caregiver protecting love or draining my future? When you feel the urge to dodge discomfort, see if the trickster is buying relief now and charging you later. The moment you recognize the pattern, you stop obeying it. You start steering with both emotion and logic. Low income gets recycled through your inner life. You can have the skills and the opportunities, yet still feel pulled toward outcomes that trap you. The victim archetype blocks money by training you to expect unfairness. You say, I can't catch up, or nothing ever works. This shows up when you hesitate before applying for a job, then blame the result on someone else. Long before you run out of money, you run out of hope. Underneath, the shadow blocks money by hiding your desires. You might judge ambitious people as greedy, while secretly feeling ashamed of your own wanting. In daily terms, this looks like procrastination or sabotaging a plan right when it starts to work. Money slips away because the part of you that should ask for it is trying to stay invisible. Then, the rebel archetype blocks money by turning freedom into resistance. You reject rules and authority. At first, it feels empowering. But rebellion can quietly become a loop. You reject legitimate structure, you miss deadlines, and you call it independence. In real life, you might leave a stable job right when it starts to look better, simply because safety feels like a cage. You can spot these archetypes in your body. Victim shows up as freezing. Shadow shows up as avoidance. Rebel shows up as impulsive reversals. When you notice which archetype takes the wheel, you start catching the moment before the choice is made. Low income often isn't just about money skills. It's about the stories your mind repeats under pressure. In Jung's view, you relate to life through these inner patterns. You may carry an inner figure that trades self-worth for approval, so you accept low pay and call it just until things get better. That internal setup becomes your script. Changing the script starts with mapping the pattern. Notice the moment you feel small or ashamed about money. If you hear keep your head down, you're listening to a worker who learned that visibility is risky. If you hear prove you're not weak, a warrior may be trying to win worth through endurance. When you name the role, you gain room to choose a different response. Higher income becomes possible when you form a new inner agreement. Tell yourself that asking for what you're worth is part of your job. Practice one small act that contradicts the old script, negotiate one rate, submit one application you used to avoid, or rehearse a short line before a difficult conversation. Your nervous system needs evidence that change is safe. Jung suggests you can balance an unhelpful pattern with a stronger one. If you've been stuck in self-erasing roles, cultivate the builder, steady and focused on value. If you've been trapped in avoidance, invite the explorer, curious and open to feedback. You don't replace your personality overnight, you shift the steering wheel. You might think low income is only about luck. But when you zoom in, you see the patterns. Stress drains your energy. Your choices get smaller. Fear makes you play it safe, even when the door to something better is open. These archetypes are a map of how your mind learned to survive. Low income isn't only a number. It's also a story. You weren't lazy, you were trying to feel safe. Now take this with you, you can start changing the story. Notice which inner role shows up when money feels tight. Pause before you react. Choose one action that supports your long-term self. You don't need to fix everything today. You need one shift in awareness, one step taken with intention.